Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the show. Happy holidays, Night Nation. Jeff Sharon with you here. We got Kyle Nash, the student of the game, in the house. We got Bryson Turner in here with us. We got a loaded show here for you to get you through the Christmas commute as we wrap up. Well, a bunch of things. We'll talk a little bit of recruiting, which, if you're like me and Kyle and Bryson and a lot of other ones of us, so you're like, okay, let's cut through the Twitter chatter a little bit, and the crap talking and whatnot, and actually get down to some brass tacks here. Basketball, men's hoops got a big W over the Stetson Hatters in a little throwback game on Wednesday night. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the women's team also with one game left in their non-conference schedule. Getting back-to-back dubs this week as well. And a little bit later, we're joined by our friends on our SB Nation sister site. It's called Duke Basketball Report, but they do happen to cover football as well. It shows you exactly what Duke thinks about football. But but we will talk with them about the Blue Devils heading into the Military Bowl on the 28th against UCF. So we'll get some perspective from the Dukies. And also a little, is that right, Bryson? A little MLS draft news to talk about?
Yes.
I'm sorry. No, not MLS draft, MLS SuperDraft.
SuperDraft.
Yes. I keep thinking of, remember the Looney Tunes cartoon Super Duck?
Oh boy.
Which is just an absolute masterpiece. Absolute masterpiece.
I must not have caught on because I've never heard of that. Or is that a Daffy Duck personality?
Yes, that's what it is. It's Daffy Duck doing Superman, and it's fantastic. It has the greatest fake villain name of all time in it. Aardvark Ratnik. I mean, is that not great?
Special.
Yeah, I seriously thought about like making that like a burner Twitter handle. If you ever see that pop up, it's probably me. Anyway, let's talk early signing day, and let's throw some asterisks and the little crosses and the double asterisk and the triple asterisk and all that. All right, so 2022 signees, 14 of them, booms, nothing but booms. For UCF, coming from Georgia, Florida, Alabama, several places. There's also some transfer portal movement, which we'll talk about a little bit. Some of the headlines that we were talking about: John Walker, the defensive tackle from Osceola High School in Kissimmee, stayed with UCF, but of course we knew that big kid, 6'4", 300 defensive tackle. He joins Andrew Rump from Palmetto as a defensive tackle up front. We also got Caven Call from Apopka as a defensive end. A couple offensive linemen here, Kyle Nash. Jonathan Klein from Cartersville, Georgia. Keon Cox of Phoenix City, Alabama. Also another D lineman I forgot to mention, Isaiah Nixon from St. Pete. We got some wide receiver help with Tyree Patterson of Eustis. And Randy Pittman, a tight end from Lynn Haven, Florida as well. And another kicker, which I should mention, Grant Reddick, who's I think he's number one kicker in the country. Is that right? From Boone High School, just down the road, kicker and punter. And of course, quarterback Dylan Rizek from Fort Lauderdale went to Cardinal Gibbons joins the fray as well. I think we had, let's see, a couple linebackers, Braden Marshall, a corner from Lake Mary. So rather local flavor to this class, which I remember going back to the first Scott Frost press conference where they were talking about recruiting Florida. And Gus, has his contacts in Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, throughout the Southeast, Kyle. But let's look at this from everyone likes to talk about, we got this one guy to flip, or he was thinking about, or you didn't get this guy to flip. I don't give a rep about any of that stuff. I mean, if the guy's going to come here, he's going to come here. If he's not going to come here, he's not going to come here. And if he flips, maybe we didn't want him. Maybe we don't want a guy like that to begin with who can be that easily swayed. I'm just saying.
Well,
but I mean, what for you?
Yeah.
Looking at all this, what's the top line story here?
I mean, first of all, Walker coming in at the defensive tackle spot, he's probably the highest. I think he is the highest rated, touted, whatever you want to call it, prospect that UCF has gotten out of high school, right? Like, there's been a lot of quality transfers in Gus's tenure here, but as for a boom directly from high school, Walker got it, and he got it at what I don't know I would necessarily call it a position of need, but it's certainly one where you're filling a gap, right? Anthony Montalvo's out the door. You just potentially replaced him very nicely. So getting something like that in place where linebacker and DB is a focus, to get a stout middle is the key to keeping linebackers and safeties who are going to attack the backfield, or people at the night position, right? The Justin Hodgeses of the world. Getting that in place is essential, right? Just as an example for those that want to ask why, Ray Lewis's career had two excellent defensive tackles, right? Sam Adams and
Goose
Hiloti. Well, Siragusa was more
the late Tony Siragusa, yeah.
Yeah, he was more kind of a stout DN that they would move inside and outside. I'm more referring to Hiloti Nada. That's a nose in the middle kind of to plug things up. Not that they run a 3-4 like they do in that set that I'm talking about with Baltimore, but nonetheless, preventing guys like me getting to the second level to really rough up guys in at that space in the run game to that, have a clear size advantage. So I like what's going there, getting in the trenches and beefing up that part of the team is something you've heard me preach about, literally all football season, Jeff. And, I like some of these offensive line pieces they're pulling in. Little bit smaller than I'd like, but also remembering these are high school kids coming in. It'll be interesting to see what they're putting up on the scale after a full off-season program and working on getting themselves a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. And a point you made, actually, I think it was either last podcast or 2 weeks ago here on the Black Gold Banneret Podcast, Jeff, replacing skill players at an excellent clip, especially at the wide receiver and cornerback position, right? You mentioned the Lake Mary kid, Braden Johnson. What Coach had to say about him is that he plays corner, but he has a safety's body. Safeties, quality safeties.
Braden Marshall, we should say.
Yeah, Braden Marshall. I said Johnson, my fault. Braden Marshall. I thought that, and I'm like, Brandon Marshall. No, that's not it. Anyways, Braden Marshall.
Yeah, I know.
Braden Marshall has the build of a safety, but he has corner skills. As you see, he's listed as that on coming out of Lake Mary. But the whole thing is this: if he could get coached up proper, start to learn the safety spot, not only could he become a quality option, a la, the Richie Grants of the world, but if he builds enough with that kind of size, I mean, that's professional level prospect, low level NFL, XFL, USFL player before he's done. And that kind of development you could get under Malzahn could keep him here for a long time in a world where recruiting internally is just as important externally, as Gus also pointed out during signing day when I asked him.
This is not the only national signing day that we'll be going through in the next 2 months.
Indeed.
The actual national signing day is February 1st.
Right.
What holes have to be filled between now and then, you think?
I still feel like there's an element where more offensive beef is needed. Not so much that what we have there is wanting, right? Lokahi Paoli. Did I say it right this time?
Paoli,
whatever. So Lokahi Paole has committed to staying. If they hold on to Matt Lee, you got a good internal core there. But with the rest of the group kind of missing from that point, getting Klein and company in is nice, but they still need more. So we'll probably see some of that in the transfer portal. And also Coach Malzahn mentioned that linebacker, just like last year, this year is also an area of focus with all the guys that have since departed thus far in the group. So definitely I would still expect to see plenty of action in the transfer portal, but in particular, those positions overall.
Bryson Turner, let's turn to you and talk about some incoming transfers here, because you've been all over it with our transfer portal tracker. There are a couple of incoming guys here, I think that may serve to fill up some of those spots already. For example, Kyle, you mentioned the beef up front. Well, Marcellus Marshall, redshirt junior offensive tackle from Kent State, was all MAC first team, and now he's coming to town.
Interestingly, he's actually from Morgantown, West Virginia, so that'll make for an interesting little homecoming for him when we go against the Mountaineers. But Eric Lopez is not here today, so I'm going to say it for him. Let's see who came from the portal.
Bryson, who's in the portal? There we go.
Right.
Yes, I had to adjust it a teeny bit because this time we're actually being able to see what the portal giveth us today.
Yes.
So
the portal giveth who?
The portal has given us a new long snapper to potentially take up the reins from Alex Ward. His name is Gage King, a redshirt senior out of Arizona State. And Jay Feely actually called him an NFL quality long snapper. And with Alex Ward,
shout out to Drew, Mr. Long Snapper. Right.
So with Alex Ward seeming having some buzz about him being in the NFL, we could potentially maybe see 2 NFL quality long snappers in a row here at UCF. So that's a nice boon to have, especially considering the special teams now, because Colton Boomer will be moving into his sophomore year. So we also have another corner by the name of Fred Davis II. I tried to see if he was related to the Fred Davis from the Commanders, but could not come up on that. But he is from Clemson. He has 2 years left on his eligibility. He played in 7 games last season, started 3 of them, made 13 tackles, 2 pass breakups, and recovered a fumble. So he also adds with another corner who was listed among the signing day signings, but he's a JUCO guy. So we went and put him in the portal since he's transferring from community college. His name is Jamerick Morris. He played with Hutchinson Community College, and he did very well for them. He was an all-conference conference recognition for their conference, which is called the Jayhawk Conference, interestingly. And he ended up basically one thing that was interested me is he really was a class above the rest of his teammates in interceptions and pass breakups, which is something that I think the secondary really lacked this season. And so,
yes, and not a lot of interceptions out of the secondary this year.
Right. And this is also something that another secondary transfer might help him with, safety DeJordan Mask, which, by the way, might end up
solid name.
I think that'll make your favorite names to say.
Solid name.
He is from Texas State, actually. So I don't
Bobcats.
So yes, and that's where GJ Kenny had actually just ended up. But he ended up he played in 12 games in last season, so he played the full season, made 42 tackles, and caught 3 interceptions. So another member of the secondary that's hopefully will be able to give them some more interceptions, especially with Kobe Perry gone, Devon Wilson going to the NFL. Finding people that can get those interceptions, I think, is very key for the secondary. And I think that's also a big reason why we saw Addison Williams get the promotion that he did, to see the secondary, the people in the secondary that he's been managing to bring in, being able to hold on to those people for next season is going to be huge in order to just not let that whole unit just derail. Lastly, from the portal, you mentioned Marcellus Marshall earlier. We have another SEC wide receiver named Chauncey Magwood from Kentucky. He played all 12 games in 2022, caught 7 receptions for 104 yards. So that just deepens an already stacked wide receiver core that's starting to get a good amount of former SEC players in there.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. Yeah, and as a real quick aside, one would have to wonder as far as your guys coming in to get more defensive back stats on the list there, Bryson. I'll be curious to see what Addison Williams does, not necessarily for the upcoming game in the Military Bowl, but into the next season, how he changes the scheme to see if he still does the bend don't break approach. The more, let's put it this way, the more good transfers they are, the less he'll have to do to compensate in scheme to give them the opportunity to get those numbers. So I think that this will be a very interesting thing to watch moving forward with the program.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, by the way, that linebacker being a position of need. With Addison Williams being promoted to defensive coordinator, that leaves the linebacker coach position open because that's what Travis Williams had alongside being defensive coordinator. So I'm going to be very interested to see who the Knights are going to hire for that spot.
A couple of things that we wanted to, a couple of interesting points from the transfer portal as well. We wanted to just mention, of course, we mentioned Ryan O'Keefe going to Boston College, which you already knew, and JJB, Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste heading to Ole Miss. Mikey Keene made some news yesterday. He announced he will transfer to Fresno State. He will play for Jeff Tedford, who, of course, is well-known quarterback guru, of course, coached Aaron Rodgers at Cal, among several other players. Kyle, I thought that's a pretty good fit for Mikey. I'm glad he's heading out to Fresno to play for Tedford.
I'm forced to agree. Listen, we had a long conversation last year about a few players who I thought bit off more than they could chew with their transfers, and I'm glad to see that Mikey Keene is not among those. Listen, say what you will. Maybe he pulls a DJ Mack and starts there and has great success at a different program and gives himself an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Maybe he'll do even better than that and clips himself back into a Power Five program as he learns more. I'm not sure exactly what to expect from Mikey Keene. I know I've been critical of some of his passing abilities, so to speak, but I do think he has a good foundation in base. He has the intangibles, and this could be a good platform through which he could learn. Yeah, I'm with you.
If you're going to get better, you may as well do it with a guy like Tedford, right? I mean, look who he's coached in the past. At Fresno, coached the likes of Trent Dilfer, Billy Volek. Let's see. He was at Oregon also, coached Akili Smith to being a top draft pick. Of course, you can talk about his NFL career all you want, but Akili did get there and make a lot of money. AJ Feely, Joey Harrington. He was at Cal. We talked about Aaron Rodgers, and has a success and has had a successful career coaching elsewhere as well. So, hey, good for Mikey. Best of luck out there at Fresno. I hope that he does get the chance to not just develop, but also, win. And, Fresno this past year under Tedford went 10-4, won the LA Bowl this year, 7-1 in the Mountain West. And, hey, could be a lot worse, right? Let's see. Yeah. Oh, he coached Kyle Bowler. Almost forgot about Kyle Bowler. So
Kyle, I should have been a bowler. Yeah. Sorry.
What? Hey, don't laugh. He also recruited Jared Goff, but was fired before he had the chance to coach him at Cal. So
that is
yeah. And then so we await to see what the transfer portal giveth to former Knights as well. All right. Let's make a transition, shall we, to men's basketball last night. Now, earlier this week in Sunrise, heartbreaker, lost at the buzzer beater to Mizzou in a game that you look at and you just kind of throw your hands up and you're like, really? On a broken play at the end of the game, Mizzou throws in a 40-foot buzzer beater and wins the game. But one of the things that Todd Dagenet told me over volleyball is never let a team beat you twice. And UCF did not do that against the Stetson Hatters. Old school matchup on Wednesday night, 73-58 was the final. In a game where UCF jumped out to a big lead, Stetson chipped away. This is a Stetson team to beat Florida State earlier this year, by the way, mind you. Mm-hmm. Coached by our former head coach, Donnie Jones. Also Sean Finney, former UCF assistant with Donnie at Stetson as well. We had a bunch of guys from the Donnie era in the crowd yesterday, like Dwight McCombs, Josh Criddle, Matt Williams were all there. It was tight there in that second half for a minute, but key moment in the game. And I'm looking at the second half right now through the play-by-play. Stetson was within one here, under 10 minutes to go. And let's see, it was what, 62 to, or at one point it was 56 to 50 or 55-54 after Luke Brown made it through with 6:08 to go. UCF's up one. Couple Brandon Suggs free throws. Darius Johnson makes a jumper to make it a 5-point game. Ithiel Horton makes a 3 to make it 62-54. The key moment after the prior to the under 4 timeout, Sam Peake makes a layup, 62-56. And then immediately after the layup, Ithiel Horton gets the ball and decides to do this.
For there is Peake. And now quickly the other way, the quick outlet. Here is Horton.
No! No! On his head! On his head! You cannot wield it. None of us can.
Scott Adams, and that was Mike O'Donnell.
Did he say you cannot wield him? Like he Horton sword?
I don't know. I don't even know. What did he say? What did you hear?
I heard wield. Yeah, I'm with Bryson on that. If you want me to be surprised, I mean, it was an amazing play, and I am enthusiastic to see it. But if you want me to be surprised that Ithiel Horton did that, listen, I've mentioned him as that powder keg, that Tasmanian devil on this squad, that if he gets unleashed, it's a dangerous thing, proven in that execution.
He was, that was such a key play. And boy, it was fun to see him actually, because Ithiel's been a really good outside shooter. I love to see him take it to the hole because the dude's built. He's like a slightly larger form of Darius Johnson with longer arms. He's built like a middle linebacker. And I love to see him get ahead of steam to the hole. And man, like goodness me. That was
based off pure athleticism and just the look of the play. That I think that might be a play of the year candidate. It's not
I think it is.
It's not going to win because
we don't know that.
Stetson, but the problem is that the thing that working against this one is it's a game against Stetson, and it's not exactly as big of a game as Oklahoma State.
I think that's. I don't want. We'll let the fans decide that later in the year. Let's put it on the spreadsheet, Bryson. Put it on.
There's nothing wrong with setting the bar. I'm with you.
Right.
Legendary call though. Well done, Mike O'Donnell.
Okay, so we get the dub heading into conference play 9-3. The 3 losses are by a combined 7 points. Kyle, where are we at right now? Are would you say that heading into conference play, conference opener 28th, next Wednesday against Wichita State? Do you feel watching this team? In talking to Coach Dawkins and the players, how do they feel heading into conference play right now?
I mean, you mentioned Dawkins. He's going to feel as confident as I think Coach Dawkins is capable of feeling, right? Like this, he's always looking ahead to the very next game. So, as far as like, oh yeah, it's not like he's going to come out with that we're going to take down the world kind of message. It's always very meticulous, one game at a time, looking at the next thing. But I don't see how players and fans alike aren't excited about this group. You've mentioned how close they are to being an undefeated basketball team this point in. And say what you will about Taylor Hendricks. Obviously he's a big part of it, but the contribution that's come from literally everybody on this floor at some point. They've had nights where every player that's on the floor puts up points. Granted, those are more kind of blowout nights, but let's not take anything from it. What this group does off the bench and their starting 5, this is the true versatility that we were hearing about last year from Dawkins, in a group that didn't quite lock in every night, delivering that versatility, be it because of whatever discipline issues like we heard in the preseason or any of the other issues that came up with injuries. This is a group that's delivering in many different ways, has a deep front court, has a talented back court, and Taylor Hendricks, who's a versatile player capable of doing both. It's a great mix. I'm not here to say they're going to win the American, which is a tough basketball conference, but they're going to get at least as far as last year's group and maybe one round further.
Bryson, I wanted to ask you about that too, because you talked to the guys yesterday as well. And I thought that last night the offense, especially early, just had an extra gear with Darius Johnson. He looks like he's fully back now. CJ Walker didn't play last night, but but word is he'll be ready to go for conference play. One more week to rest, and then he'll be back 100%, or at least close to it. But Darius told you some interesting stuff last night about how he kind of how he views the non-conference slate.
Yes, Theo Horton actually said something very interesting. He viewed the non-conference slate as a good benchmark for how conference play is going to work out. Because of course, you got Houston and Memphis on there. I mean, that speaks for itself. But Darius has kind of the right idea here. He is cognizant of the fact that, 3 possessions go differently, and this team is an undefeated basketball team. He's not blind to that, but in the end, he ends up learning from the little moments from those times, and you can't really do anything else about them. And then that will basically take you through into conference play and make them better for it, I would say. I mean, that UNC Asheville game, I remember I asked him, what was the biggest difference between that team and now? And he said the chemistry wasn't there during that game, which I think implies that the chemistry here is a lot better than it was now. And I think you can see that through the performances we've seen. I mean, they beat Ole Miss. They could have beat Missouri if not for that dang buzzer beater. And they managed to outlast a very stubborn Stetson team, honestly, that just kind of kept in the game. So I think this is a very, now that I think we really learned a lot about this team over the course of non-conference, but I think that as we go into conference play, not only will they be tested more, but I think they'll be much more prepared than they've ever have been, because now they actually are able to have spent a lot more time playing together. They seem to really have some roles down. Brandon Suggs, coming off the bench really well, really specializing in that free throw. He nailed all those free throws last night. You had Taylor Hendricks, even though he went 7 of 20 from the floor, which is the second lowest shooting percentage of the season. He still went and got 5 assists.
Look at Bryson ragging on the freshman. Oh my God.
hey, Johnny Dawkins, the mark of a good player is that he finds ways to succeed. And that is what Taylor Hendricks did. I mean, he had,
but find a way. If something's not working, if one thing's not working, find something else that does work. And you're right. He did a double for him, his 3rd of the year. He's won 3 straight Freshman of the Week awards in the American. I thought
it was 4.
Is it 4? I've lost count. It's almost like
Can we just call it for the month? It was him. How about that?
Yeah. I'm like, it's kind of like, like McKenna Melville would win Offensive Player of the Week in volleyball. And it's like, just name the award after her. She's won it like 20 sometimes in the course of her career. But anyway, all right. So Wichita next Wednesday. Wichita State, by the way, 6-5 on the year. Losses to Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Mizzou, and San Francisco, interestingly enough, and Alcorn State they lost earlier in the year too. Wins over the likes of Richmond, Tarleton State, who UCF also played. They actually took Mizzou to overtime. Interesting, man. Mizzou is just like is like the bugaboo to AAC teams here. And they have one more game just on Thursday, the 22nd against Texas Southern, if we want to scout ahead on ESPN Plus before they come to UCF on Wednesday, the 28th, 7 p.m. is the start for that game. All right. I wanted to flip over, talk a little women's hoops as well before we move on to talking about the bowl game and a break. 2 games for Coach Tia Messer and her team. They're 8-3. They won them both back-to-back by double digits. Beat Idaho State by 17. Beat Elon, not Musk, Elon by 18. And snapped that 3-game losing streak that they had after playing Auburn, Seton Hall, and Tennessee. And they have one more non-conference game on the 29th. That's next Thursday at 6 p.m. against Texas Southern at home before they start conference play, actually after the first of the year. They're at SMU on Tuesday, January 3rd to start AAC play. But Kyle, we were there for both of those games in the Christmas Classic. They look to have righted the ship, although sometimes, man, it looked a little uneven in both of those games. Like okay. Am I a little too used to the Coach Abe era here in saying these games were very chaotic in how they kind of went down? Plenty of turnovers, some wild missed shots, but we still came out on top by double digits, right? So what am I complaining about?
Well, let's not act like Coach Abe's squad didn't start slowing their own right in a number of games. How many times was the question to Abe post game, hey, what can we do about slow starts? And she would respond, if you could tell me, I would like to know. So I think it's kind of in that ilk. But the other thing I think you're used to there, I was about to call you Eric Lopez. We already have enough Eric Lopez.
No. That's true that you're calling
right.
Eric Lopez.
No, but the thing I would say to you, Jeff, is you're also used to a group that's been relatively healthy last year. And this group has not been that. During the tournament, you got two brand new faces. One, of course, being Ashley Foster from Georgia State arriving in from Atlanta just 4 days before this recording. So there's that.
Yeah.
And then also Nay Hutton returning to action after missing significant time with a preseason injury. And buddy, let me tell you, that second game in the Christmas Classic, the first one she came out, had 11 minutes, made her presence felt, it definitely showed some toughness in that first game. But the second game, she only put up 3 points, but 9 rebounds, including at least 2 where the ball gets loose and she's diving on that piece like Rodman.
Oh yeah, she owned the boards against Elon.
And then where she's jumping up against 3 other players and coming down with the board. It's very impressive. The hair she wears is kind of like a blonde ponytail coming out, but it looks more like a plume from a Knight's helmet when she's there fighting underneath. And that's what Satia Messer promised us. And we got it. So with her and Destiny combined down low, 20 rebounds in that game, not really a surprise going there too. And listen, this is a team that's asking a freshman to put in 32 minutes running the point. Sierra Godbolt doing her thing, 4 steals, 8 assists, and just having to lead this team, finding veterans. This is we were talking about last year with the men's team, Jeff, DJ waving off Shikembake Zhang on a play. This is the kind of stuff we're asking Godbolt to do on a regular basis.
I was talking with my buddy Jeremy Panagos, who does marketing for UCF, and Jeremy was like, she's going to win Defensive Player of the Year award in the Big 12 before she's done, Sierra Godbolt. Like, he's convinced of it. And it's hard to disagree with that, because defensively, like, Sierra's fantastic. And if we can talk about Desto for just a second.
Sure.
School record tying 24 rebounds last time out prior to the Christmas Classic.
Seton Hall.
Yep, Seton Hall. 11 rebounds against Idaho State, 11 more against Elon. Desto, I played 2 of the best games I've ever seen her play. And even though she didn't score very well, she was only 2 of 10 from the field against Elon. I thought she dominated the game defensively and on the glass. And also I got to shout out Rachel Ranke, because when nothing was working for UCF shooting wise, she was 8 of 11, 5 of 8 from 3, 21 points. And 5 rebounds for Rachel, who's just a sniper.
Well,
she was fantastic.
Don't limit her game, Jeff. Remember, Coach Messer tells you about versatility, and I know it's fun to talk about, Rachel Ranke getting hot from 3 and having 10 points in a single quarter. 4 of those were in the paint, my friend. Posting up, by the way. Rachel is a versatile player on offense, to say the least, and the fact that even at her size, height-wise, and she's able to find a way to kind of sneak into a spot to get open, and then Sierra as a freshman spotting it. This is that chemistry they've been building. This is the versatility we're talking about. Destiny Thomas is a complete athlete now, Jeff.
Yeah.
The way she's getting steals as a center is insane. You mentioned the first game in the Christmas Classic there, not against Elon, but against Oh, shoot.
Idaho State.
Thank you. Idaho State. I was thinking ISU, but I couldn't put it together. Idaho State. There was a ball on a full court press. They were trying to sling it out and trying to get out of the backcourt. And here comes Destiny Thomas. Ironically, on the same day, the football team announces Addison Williams the promotion from the defensive back coach to defensive coordinator. She's picking off a ball looking like a defensive back in her own right. She's stealing passes by coming from behind a post player and zipping in front to pick the ball off. This is stuff we haven't seen from Destiny Thomas before. And I asked both Layla Jewett and Coach Messer if this is something you've seen in practice and we fans are late because it's just not happening in games. They both agreed, no, this is new. This is Destiny fitting a new role, coming out of that true center mold and being more power forward like. And you know, gosh, the only thing I think you don't ask her to do right now is shoot threes, and not that she needs to with this group. So just so much versatility from Destiny Thomas. She definitely has had more double-doubles at home than she hasn't. So if you look at 9 points and feel disappointed, remember, she's at a high bar, folks. Like, you know.
All right. So there we are with 8-3, 9. They're trying to get to 9-3, just like the men's team, by the way, with Texas Southern coming up after Christmas. How do we feel? Last bit on women's basketball. How do we feel about them heading into, as we get ready to, again, not quite conference play just yet, but after the holiday, now we're going to gear up for this. Are we right where we want to be? I'm still worried about those injuries. Look like the walking wounded out there, and some, you know, as some players were. Well, I thought I saw what was Ashton Verhulst is hurt
as a boot, yeah.
And then who else did I see? Was it Asia Todd still hurt?
Yes.
You know, it's kind of rough out there, and I mean, injuries are the great wild card, as we know. You know, so
I'm glad you.
How do we feel?
I'm glad you mentioned wild card, Jeff, because here's the thing: the performance thus far with a limited group, where you have two freshmen regularly in the starting lineup, right? Godbolt and Brianna Hardy, who's been doing great in her own right. You know,
yeah, Bree's been great.
Yeah, they're coming out and doing what they did. Only 3 losses so far, and hanging with Tennessee as long as they did, short some of it. If they have Nay Hutton in that game, I can't imagine how different it would have been, right? Because they were in it for the first 3 quarters, or 2.5, if you want to call it that. And then, you know, Tennessee just kind of blew the game open. But if Nay were present with that presence, I can only imagine what would have happened. And you know, I say that building on what Coach said. If we had some of the players that we were missing, those 3 losses would have been different games, right? Auburn, Seton Hall, and Tennessee, all fantastic basketball teams. And then on top of that, Coach was visibly excited when I asked her about things moving forward, just having full bodies to practice, a full complement of bodies to practice with. The fact that they can develop this way, she's excited about it. Both the players were excited about it. Rachel and Nay Hutton, who I spoke to yesterday, and they're excited to see Sierra Godbolt get involved the way she's doing, showing early maturity on top of all that. You know, she mentioned building, Sierra mentioned building chemistry as a freshman is something that they got through, but they just, you know, they hang out together so much, and the way this group's gotten close off the court has been a big part of the success, is the feeling I get. And it's a whole new season, conference play from the ladies' perspective, and they're all excited to be able to find that other gear with people getting back to health and things starting to really lock in practice.
All right. So we wait for their game against Texas Southern on the 29th. We wait for the men's game against Wichita on the 28th as we will gear it back up. And by the way, we got the bowl game on the 28th, which is, by the way, we're going to talk about next when we return here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We're joined by our compatriots from the Duke Basketball Report. Don't let that name fool you. To preview the Military Bowl, UCF against Duke. And then after that, we got some MLS drafts. No, not draft. SuperDraft news. We'll talk about McKenna Melville, yet another award to cap off her amazing UCF career. And I will ask Bryson and Kyle what UCF would want for Christmas from Santa Claus this year. Stick around when we come back. This is Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Kyle back with you here. And of course, we're going to preview the Military Bowl in Annapolis. It's UCF against Duke. And joining us now, a couple guys from our Duke sister site on SB Nation, Duke Basketball Report. They cover football for a basketball site. That's true. And I'm sure they get a lot of crap for it too. Jason Evans and Donald Wine from Duke Basketball Report joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret to preview Black and Gold Banneret Podcast to preview UCF and Duke. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing
yeah,
great.
You're right. We're basketball, mostly basketball focused, but you know what? Before basketball season starts, there is some football, and we pay a lot of attention to it.
We like to say that we're multifaceted.
Well, yeah, okay. I'm glad we share that because we do too. But listen, we all know here in the state of Florida, this being the home state of one Steve Spurrier, that we are overly familiar, maybe a little bit more than we want to be, with the history of Duke football and how absolutely miserable it mostly has been for years. But of late, the Blue Devils program has been pretty good. David Cutcliffe had a nice little run. And here you are with your first year head coach, Mike Elko, at 8-4, finished second in the Coastal. Rest in peace, the ACC Coastal Division and 18 years of absolute chaos that it's given us. Give us.
You are really well versed. You know this stuff, man.
Look, this is Florida's a football state. What can I say? Just like Carolina's a basketball state. But Jason, I'll start with you. Duke football this year. How has this year played out for the Blue Devils, and in the overall direction of the program? How have you seen this era sort of start and move forward?
Well, I'll tell you this. If you find a Duke football fan, someone who follows the program, who says to you, oh yeah, I saw an 8-4 season coming, they're lying. No one, no one saw this coming. It is a great tribute to Mike Elko and his staff that they were able to pull this off in their first season. You were right when you talked about Duke's history. Duke had a nice run under David Cutcliffe. We had several years where we were very good and really contending for ACC Coastal Division crowns. But the past, I don't know, I haven't looked exactly. I'd say like 4 years or so have not been good for Duke. And last year, this team was pretty much non-competitive in ACC games. And by that, I mean routinely losing, not just by double digits, but 20 plus points. Mike Elko brought back mostly, other than a couple very, very small changes, the same team that was non-competitive last year. And not only did they go 8-4, but like the games that they lost, they could have won. I'm not going to bore your audience with it, but there are several of these. Yeah, there are several of these games. Not only are one possession games that go to overtime, games that are decided in the final minute or two, where, look, with one little break here or there, I'm not kidding with you, this team could easily be 10-2. And it is, again, a huge tribute to the confidence that Mike Elko and his staff brought to this team. And then the other thing it's a huge tribute to is the development of Riley Leonard at quarterback, because he's the best quarterback Duke's had in a couple seasons for sure. Donald can talk more about it.
Yeah, I think for me, the surprise was and we talked about the team before the season started, and the word out of the camp was that the team just wanted to be competitive. And for Duke fans, we were like, hey, as Jason said, we were very not competitive the year before. And in previous years, that competitiveness had gone down. So yeah, being competitive, maybe going for 6 wins and hopefully making a bowl game, squeaking one out would be great. I think what has come about this program is these guys bought into Mike Elko's philosophy and his system from day one. And it showed in their approach to this game. As Jason mentioned, the Kansas game is the game that we lost the most by, and that was a 1-possession ball game all the way down to the end. Everyone else was either by 2 points or by 3 points in overtime or on the last second field goal. So these guys were in every single game to the very end. There was no quit out of this team. And I think because of the confidence that they gained from even these losses, they were able to use that. And really, I mean, in some of these games, they really took their opponents to the woodshed. So we're super happy about how this season turned out. And we're super happy about, just the trajectory of what this program is going to look like under Mike Elko, not just on the field, but we were just talking on our show yesterday about the fact that recruiting has gone up. All of these little things, the winning part is bringing fans back, is bringing more confidence to the program, and is making recruits say, hey, I can win in Durham.
It's the thing. The only way I would really fault Duke's season so far, guys, is the 2 losses you do have in conference. I know you feel like you probably should have had them. My only complaint about that is now I have to watch the Seminoles over here in the bowl game for the season instead. So really, that's the only problem I have with you guys, if I'm being honest about it. Now, joking aside, I'm looking at Riley Leonard's numbers. Throws the ball relatively well, leading rusher in yardage. And if there's anything to his game that you feel like might need work, what would you guys point out? Because I know UCF at large has a lot to say about their quarterback situation, but what's kind of the scuttlebutt around Leonard as a quarterback?
I think for me, if there's a flaw in his game, it's in those tweener yards. And I think when I talk about between 18 and 20 yard throws, usually you see those outs where you need like a 3rd and long. Those have been the throws that he's been struggling with the most if there is a detriment to his game. But I think the other thing that he makes up for is the fact that, yes, he can put the ball on the ground and run. And we've seen that from our quarterbacks over the years, but mainly they haven't been a pass-first quarterback. They've kind of been a run-first quarterback that can also throw the ball. This is a man who can throw the ball downfield, and we've seen him take some shots down the field. But for the most part, he's doing 5-10 yards, and he's making sure that the chains are moved. And if we need a long situation, we have a running back by committee, of which he's kind of been emerged as the leader of that group to get those yards on the ground. And I think that's kind of where he's been great. And I think also the fact is his wide receivers are really good at yards after the catch. That's where we've really excelled, where we've get him in an open space and they can see what they can do.
I'll tell you the thing that I noticed about Leonard this year. He's just a sophomore, and he really did not play very much last year at all. The amount of maturity he's shown and the decision making that he's shown has really been surprising for a guy with his experience. He only had 6 interceptions all year. He doesn't fumble the ball very much. You mentioned his running, and I want people to understand. Lots of time you hear about a running quarterback and you think of someone who is really, really fast. Riley Leonard has decent speed, but what he really excels at in running is he picks his lanes. He picks the right angles. He's 6'4", about 215 pounds or so. So he's a load. He's capable of shouldering up some guy and going through him a little bit. That's what Leonard has done really, really well from a running standpoint. It's not one of these super quick, super fast guys who gets on the edge around you. He drops back and then he goes through the holes in the middle of the line, and he gets through them very quickly and then makes smart decisions. And I'm glad Donald mentioned the wide receivers. One of the things about this Duke team that really, really surprised me as the season went on, we probably had at least 4 different guys who had games where they caught 10 passes or 100, 120, 150 plus yards receiving. It's real easy to look at it and go, a lot of teams you go, oh, this is the one guy you need to stop. That is not the case for the Duke football team. Riley Leonard sort of each game will pick a guy that he's like, that's the one who's going to get open. And he just fires that guy again and again. And one of the more interesting ones is Jordan Moore, who was a quarterback originally. He and Riley Leonard were battling for the quarterback position in the preseason. And when Riley Leonard won the job, they said, well, this Jordan Moore guy is such a great athlete. Let's see what he can do at wide receiver. And man, he really blossomed. There are several games where he just had amazing catches for someone who's never played wide receiver before.
And guys, the way you're talking about like Riley Leonard, sorry, Kyle,
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of another guy who played at Duke, who's the quarterback of my favorite professional football team, Daniel Jones, a big guy who may not
Danny
be fast,
Dimes.
but can run. Yeah, Danny Dimes. Go ahead, Kyle.
Not many Giants fans admit to Danny Dimes being their favorite player, but hey, you could be the first guy, Jeff. That's
well,
cool.
I mean, not my
We will
favorite
take it.
player, but maybe my favorite Duke player. I mean,
Okay.
we'll go with that.
I could roll with that because we all know it should be Saquon in your case. I digress. We're focused on the wrong blue there. Let me get back to play, guys. I want to touch really quick too on this concept, Jason, of the running quarterback, and people get scared. The fact that Mike Elko doesn't, I have to tell you, and this is something I've been saying on this and other pods for a while now, is if your quarterback can't run, they are a relic in all levels of football. So the fact that Coach Elko acknowledges that, just the same as a guy who's been doing it for 9 or 10 years now that Gus has been at it, Jeff, if you could recognize it like a Gus Malzahn can, that's a good sign. If you could turn players into guys who can find space with a guy who might be run first but can still get the job done, that's a good sign. That's not only life in college, gentlemen, but that's the NFL, and it's going all places. So these days of the running aspect of a quarterback being a potential detriment or bad PR on them, that going away is an observation I want to see in a young coach moving forward. So I'll give you that.
I think when it comes to, we're in a basketball podcast, so I can say this, in basketball, you have what's called, you want guys to be in a triple threat position where they can run or they can pass, they can shoot, they can do three things, right? On the football field, a quarterback, if they can throw the ball medium range, if they can throw the ball way downfield, and they can also run, as a defense, you have to plan for all three, because even if you collapse the pocket, you didn't have to worry about, oh man, this guy, if he gets away from me, there's 10 yards of open space that he can do something with the football. So I think that's the great thing. And with our philosophy, Mike Elko basically said, I want to see a guy emerge. And he was giving everybody an opportunity to step up to the plate and have that opportunity. And all of them took advantage of it. So at the end of the day, he's like, well, I got to keep giving the ball to all of these, guys that are doing well. And again, like Jason said, on any given week, one guy steps up to the plate while the other guys kind of, help out around the table, but everybody's eating.
Hey, there's been other ACC quarterbacks that have played basketball too. I'll allow it.
Yeah.
as a resident Syracuse graduate with Greg Paulus, guy who played point guard and then played quarterback for Syracuse after his basketball career was over. Let me ask you,
Donald was it you, Donald, that had the amazing stat about Greg Paulus?
Greg Paulus has the greatest stat in college sports history.
I need this.
He is the only player to date. He is the only player to lead a conference in turnovers in 2 consecutive years in 2 different sports.
You know what?
I love that one. I love that.
That is totally on brand. Totally on brand. We're with Donald Wine and Jason Evans from the Duke Basketball Report talking Duke football. Let me ask you about the defensive side of the ball too. And I guess, Don, I'll start with you here. Because Mike Elko is a defensive guy, coached the defense at A&M, Notre Dame, Wake Forest prior to that, Bowling Green prior to that. And you're not in these kinds of games like you were talking about unless your defense is really strong. This year, defensively for Duke, they were one of the best teams in the country in defending against the run, 24th in the country. UCF, obviously one of the best teams in the country at running the football, top 10 nationally coming in. So if you're trying to attack Duke's defense, Don, what are you doing?
That's a great question, because I think there's 2 things that I think our defense has improved on markedly from last year. One is, again, against the run, swarming the football, and also taking the ball away from the offense. We could not do a turnover to save our lives last year, and this year our turnover margin is like plus 24 or something. It's something astronomical compared to where we were in
the country.
Yeah. And so the fact is, he's philosophized and get everybody, 11 people on the football and taking care of business. I think the one thing that we didn't have this year that we kind of have seen in previous years was kind of a triple threat kind of decoy options, where you guys have, one guy going another way on a naked bootleg or something like that. Those are things where it'll trip up an offense, especially or a defense that is going to swarm the football. If they all think the football is going one way, you need to figure out a way to fake it and go the other way. And I think that's what we didn't see a lot of. And again, to our credit, we were able to kind of get on the quarterback and strip balls, or also get to wide receivers and cover them. But I think the big play is still where we kind of, it's almost like clockwork. We give up a big play every game. And in our mind, it's whether that's going to cost us the football game or if it's going to affect the football game in a negative way. The deep balls are going to be probably where UCF or any, offense is really going to get their shots, their opportunities to make something happen. Because as you guys know, a big play only breeds confidence in an offense, and that will help with some of the other plays that you guys do, whether they be short or medium down the field. So I think that's where, if you're going to attack a defense, you're obviously not going to do, deep route, hot routes, every single play, but picking your opportunities to do so, that's where something might happen.
I feel like this Duke defense is better in the defensive backfield than it is at the line. They're not terrible at the line, but the better players in this defense are guys like linebacker Shaka Hayward and defensive backs Darius Joyner and Jalen Stinson. Those are to a large extent the stars of this defense. If it has stars, it's not a defense built around guys who necessarily going to be playing, for many years on Sundays. But their strength, I think, is in not giving up both the big play and those sort of medium-sized passing plays. They're really good at that kind of stuff. They teams don't tend to pound them too bad. For the most part, Duke's a team that's they don't give up 30 plus points all that often. They're not the best defense around, but they're a good bend but don't break kind of defense. And I think Mike Elko is slowly instilling more and more of his identity onto the D. And that's a big deal because he is a guy, as you noted, that is has an outstanding reputation as a defensive coach.
So I was going to be asking about the defense anyway when it comes to the front and stopping the run, because it's natural to this game, fellas. But for me, I'm hearing the defensive front isn't as strong as the defensive backs. I'm finding that interesting, and thank you for that education. But I'm hearing big play, and then the defensive front isn't the strong side. When you hear about UCF quarterback John Rice Plumlee and the threat he brings, I'm seeing nods. That's kind of a worry then, because he's kind of that lottery ticket guy. I can be critical of the offensive line all I'd like. There's my offensive line credentials as I have my painting behind me. But the whole piece of that, where that battle is going to be essential. You got a top run defense first, a top run offense. That's going to be central. We knew that going in, if you know anything about football. But what concerns, what fears need to be allayed with John Rice Plumlee? Is he somebody that jumps off the page when you look?
I mean, certainly Duke has had some trouble this season, quarterbacks who are better athletes. I mean, our first loss to Kansas, we were dominated by a very, very good, very mobile quarterback. The game we lost to North Carolina and the game we lost to Georgia Tech, their quarterbacks had big days against us. And those big days were both in the air and on the ground. So it's absolutely something that you have to be concerned with if you're Duke. I do like Mike Elko having plenty of time to prepare for this game. I mean, all you need to do is, again, look at what this Duke team was a year ago and look at what they are now to know that this guy has a great football mind. And I think the more time he's given, the better it is for the Blue Devils. I don't mean that as an insult to Gus Malzahn, who is someone who also has a great reputation, but Mike Elko, I think maybe next level. Look, as a Duke fan, I'm scared. I'm worried about how long we can keep the guy. I think the big teams may come calling for him at some point fairly soon. And I just really like him having plenty of time to scheme how to stop the UCF attack.
What does that sound like a familiar thing around here, doesn't it, Kyle? Man, I hope we can keep these coaches. I want to talk. Go ahead.
They're not even changing conferences yet, man.
I know, right? What's up with that? I want want to pull little historical threads here with you guys. Of course, you guys love to talk basketball. I mean, Duke is synonymous with basketball, obviously. Our two programs had quite a game 3 years ago that we still look at as, a phenomenal game with an absolutely horrendously heartbreaking ending. Johnny Dawkins, of course, you guys know and love, is our head coach. Aubrey Dawkins played for us 2 great years. I'm on Johnny Dawkins Island here. I've always been a tremendous fan of him at UCF. I think he brings a lot of intangibles to the program that maybe we didn't have before in terms of gaining national attention. And also, I think he's actually shown himself to be an outstanding recruiter and evaluator of talent too. And so far this year, I think that's proven to be true. We're at 9-3 right now. Just won last night before in our last game before non-conference play. Couple things along the basketball lines. As Duke fans and as people who cover Duke, tell us about what your opinions of Johnny Dawkins as a coach, because of course he was an assistant there before he went to Stanford, and the job that Duke fans perceive he's doing at UCF, and then also and if you can, take us back to that game in 2019 when UCF came this close.
A taco
fall still hanging on the rim, man.
Tiptoe, and a taco fall tiptoe.
And every time I see Aubrey tip that ball back, I'm thinking it's going to go in this time. I've seen it in every replay. I don't know how that ball didn't go in. Anyway, please take it from there. Before Jason starts, the whole replaying a game to see that it ends the same way in the 2010 national championship game. Obviously, everyone knows the Gordon Hayward half court shot that just banked and just missed. They used to play that on a loop in our Duke bookstore. And every single time it got to that point, the entire bookstore, no matter who was in there, no matter how many times you see the game, everybody would stop to make sure that that ball did not go in. And we still won the national championship. So I feel you. I tell you, unbelievable. Anyway, Jason.
So I was going to say, I probably have a closer relationship with Johnny Dawkins than a lot of folks because I was in school with him. We weren't in class together or anything like that. He was a senior when I was a freshman, but that's my age that I remember watching Johnny Dawkins play on that amazing 1986 team, my freshman year, 1986, that I still think is, up there as one of the, 5 or so best teams to not win a national title. And I could talk endlessly about how you want to talk about how much that loss hurt, man, that loss to Louisville in the national championship game. I'm not sure I'll ever get over that one. But
now you guys have him in the conference with you. So
yeah, right. I think Johnny brings a tremendous amount of integrity to the job, and that is the job of being a college basketball coach. And that is something that is in pretty short supply these days. I know that fans care about wins and they care about recruiting and all these other kind of things that are tangible. But I just have unbelievable respect for Johnny Dawkins. I think he's incredibly smart about the sport and the game. And you'll never be in trouble or disappointed in something that he has done. Is that enough? There's probably some fans out there who say, no, wins are all that matter. Getting to the NCAA tournament, winning in the NCAA tournament, winning conference titles, that's all that matters. And, look, I'm at Duke, so it's hard for me to, we have been unbelievably blessed throughout my college basketball. That year I'm talking about 1986, we made the Final Four. We then proceeded to make, is it 9 of the next 11 Final Fours? Something absurd like that.
Something crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the number and over my, if you say that my lifetime as a Duke basketball fan really started with that, with me attending Duke in 1986, I got 5 fingers. I got 5 national title rings. I mean, we have been as blessed as anyone. So for me to say, oh, don't worry about wins as much. But I think whether he wins or not, Johnny Dawkins is the kind of person you want running your program.
And I'll add that, at least from a Duke perspective, I mean, like you said, Johnny Dawkins graduated in 1986, and he is still one of the most beloved Duke players, Duke people in history. Whenever he comes back, he gets warm ovations. He was an assistant coach when I was in school. So everyone from 1986 to today really understands what Johnny Dawkins means to the Duke program. He, along with that class of 86, literally helped launch Duke to what it is. And we still look back at that 86 team as the team that started this juggernaut that we've had over the last 34 years, 30, 40 years that we've been blessed to have. So, Johnny, everywhere he goes, it doesn't matter, when he was at Stanford, now he's at UCF, people still look in and watch his games and wish for success for him, along with the rest of the Coach K tree, right? We are people that when they go, they're going to represent us at that school in a way. So, and all of them kind of bring their own flavor to their programs. But yeah, it's been great to kind of watch how he's built UCF over the years. And some of the guys that have gone through your program, again, like Taco Fall, that people can, again, they have the qualities of Johnny Dawkins. They're beloved players that you can kind of endear yourself to. And when you're running in the NCAA tournament, yeah, if we were neutrals in that game, I'd be pulling for Taco Fall too, because that's how great a player and how great a person he is.
Jeff, you asked about that 2019 game. I do want to go back and address that. That team is really frustrating, I think, for Duke fans, because we see how great Zion Williamson is. We see, the amount of talent that was on that club, and the fact that they didn't make a Final Four and didn't win a national title is almost unconscionable. And to be clear, I'm not blaming Coach K for it, not for a second. It's the vagaries of the one and done tournament. But man, I mean, if they had gone out, and I know they could have lost, they absolutely could have lost that game to UCF. I mean, of course they could have. As we've said, that ball's hanging on the rim even today. And if there's a whisper of a butterfly wing, it could knock it in as opposed to it falling off.
I still
when you look at what Zion Williamson has become, like right now in the NBA, I should say, where arguably I think over the past month he's probably been maybe the best player in the entire league. RJ Barrett is playing outstanding basketball for the New York Knicks. That team had a crazy amount of talent, and the fact that they didn't make a Final Four, the fact that they almost lost in the Sweet 16 to UCF, it's kind of crazy. I know it's painful for you guys, because that probably felt like that was gonna be a magical season between Aubrey and Taco. You guys had a couple guys that I'm sure you enjoy following, in their pro careers and everything else that's going on with them. It's hard. Basketball's hard. That one and done tournament is really, it's unforgiving.
Yeah, I think it gave us a glimpse into what could happen, in the future with UCF basketball too. And, things have kind of come back down from that high of having, like you mentioned, Aubrey Dawkins, Taco Fall, and BJ Taylor too, who was our point guard, who was just outstanding. Although, this year it seems like, after COVID kind of threw a wrench into things for UCF, and it feels like this year things are starting to pick back up. A lot of new faces from, this year to next. I think we only had, Kyle, 3 guys actually with any playing time return from last year. But
that's even without accounting for DJ and CJ missing.
Yeah. So, but we start conference play against Wichita in 1 week, and we'll see what happens from there. I guess when you
good luck against Houston, by the way. You guys got Houston coming up in like a week, right?
We do. Yeah, right.
That's a big deal.
Warm up with Wichita, getting ready for Kelvin Sampson and the Cougs. My last
down to Memphis after that too, guys. Yeah.
Well, we talk about that, but Murderers Row this year, but we're getting ready to head into a Murderers Row in the Big 12. And I want, and
oh boy.
Yeah. Well, fans talk all the time about how excited we are for Big 12 football, but you guys follow not just Duke, but college basketball in general. My last question for you is, give us an idea of what Johnny and UCF's program are staring at right now as they move into the Big 12, because obviously this is a great conference for basketball. I think it's underrated for basketball, believe it or not. Even with Texas and Oklahoma leaving, you're gaining Cincinnati, whom we're familiar with. You're gaining Houston, whom we're familiar with. You're gaining BYU, who has carved out a pretty nice little niche for themselves, plus everybody else. So how steep is this climb going to be for UCF basketball heading into the Big 12?
I think that the problem that Johnny Dawkins is going to face is that the recruiting is going to have to go to the next level, and being in the Big 12 will help with that. But just having the kind of athletes, look, you're going to be playing Baylor, you're going to be playing West Virginia, you're going to be playing Texas Tech. Those are programs, and look, I could go through Oklahoma, I could go on and on. The Big 12 has for several years, in my opinion, been the best conference in college basketball. But those are programs that bring in really elite basketball players, guys who are expected to play. We talk in college football about playing on Sundays, guys who are expected to play in the NBA. And UCF hasn't really had that kind of level of talent on their team. So that's the thing that has to be stepped up. Probably the first couple of years are going to be rough. They may be really tough, especially because, admittedly, losing Kansas and Texas is a blessing, I guess, but bringing in Houston, I mean, that program's arguably as good as any program in the country right now. So it's going to be very, very difficult. There are going to be some growing pains, but merely being in a conference that's significant, that is on TV that much, where you're playing truly, elite programs that have big followings every week, twice a week, is going to help your recruiting and help your program to elevate.
I think what's going to really be the key to at least not, this trajectory being always up as you enter the Big 12 is how do you recruit in Texas? Because in the Big 12, recruiting in Texas is just, there's so many athletes in both football and basketball. There's so many schools who have, ties to that, in the sense, if you think about it, you're going to be competing with Big 12 teams. You're going to be competing with SEC. You're going to be competing with the, Conference USA. And then you're just going to be competing with like anyone else who just wants to shop around in Texas. I think that is going to be the key. At the end of the day, on the basketball front, everyone's looking up at Kansas right now. And that's kind of the standard, because if you think about it, there's been teams that have been good throughout the years, but Kansas has always been the top. I mean, I think they just recently ended a streak of like 15 years in a row where they won the Big 12. And that was with Texas being good at times, Baylor winning a national championship, those sort of things. Yeah. Kansas was always there. So there's going to be your gold standard, but I think recruiting in Texas is going to be the key because there's just so many great athletes in the state. I'm sitting here right now. There's so many great athletes here that everyone, you don't have to get the top, 4 or 5 in the state. You can still recruit some of these guys and be really, really good in the Big 12.
Wow. One of the things that we're going to have to deal with in the next year or 2 or 5 coming up, but watch out for, I will say, you mentioned talking about NBA talent. I think we have one guy right now who really is at that level in Taylor Hendricks, or at least will be in the next coming years. And hopefully he's the first of many that we see coming along. Huge thanks, Jason Evans, Donald Wine from
Hey, Jeff,
yes.
I will say it's a good problem to have. The fact that you guys are moving to the Big 12, you're way better off than the teams you're leaving behind. Way better.
That we know. Yeah, there's a school about 100 miles from here who were like, it's sucks for you. Not gonna lie. But it's almost as intense as you guys in Carolina. I'm not gonna lie. So I'll just
Central Florida South. I went to school in Miami, and a lot of people would always ask, "Oh, Miami is right by USF," and I go, "No, that's 5 hours away, just like UCF is."
I know. That's what I keep. It's a branding problem for them. It's too bad. Anyway, such a shame. Jason, Donald, how can we, as UCF fans, follow your work covering not just Duke football, but Duke basketball as well?
Well, you can always check us out on Twitter at DBRSBN is the Duke Basketball Report Twitter handle. And if you search for Duke Basketball Podcast or Duke Basketball Report, you will find our podcast. We are quite proud of the fact that the Duke Basketball Report podcast is the #1 college basketball podcast on the entire SBN network of podcasts. In fact, with the exception of during football season, we are consistently the #1 college sports podcast on ESPN. So we feel very lucky to be able to just talk about Duke sports all the time and get paid pennies to do it.
And more importantly, that people actually listen. Still a wild concept for us.
I'm with you. Sometimes we put this out and we're like, I wonder how people can, but yeah, they do listen. Guys, thank you so much for your time and your insight. 2:00, December 28th at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis, UCF against Duke. Duke is a 3-point favorite, which means that, well, actually it is on a neutral site. So you guys would be a 6-point favorite if it was at home, probably be a pick 'em if it was here in Orlando. Guys, enjoy it. Enjoy the game. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Jason,
I'd say good luck, but no.
Yeah. Jason Evans and Donald White for the Duke Basketball Report. Thanks, guys. We'll be back in just a moment. This is Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We are back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Kyle, and Bryson with you. Our last show before the holiday. We got a couple gifts to pass around here. Over on UCF volleyball, yes, more volleyball news. By the way, Texas won the national championship, but the history from the UCF perspective, McKenna Melville, AVCA first team All-American, first player in program history to be a first team All-American. She's been honorable mention, third time. It's her 5th year in a row with at least an honorable mention. But to be first team, what a way to cap off her career. We have a tremendous feature on blackandgoldbanneret.com on her right now. So we want to congratulate McKenna on that and sort of just put the last word on her amazing UCF career, where she finishes 8th all time in NCAA Division I history in kills, 2nd all time in the 25-point rally scoring era. Obviously, 1st all time at UCF. Congrats to McKenna. What an amazing honor that was for her and for the team. Just a model student athlete. I mean, there's really no other way we can say it. And we're really, it's been an honor watching her for 5 years. Men's soccer news. Gino Vivi, picked by the LA Galaxy, 23rd overall, 1st round pick. Gino going to LA. He's not the only UCF player I think they're playing. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Bryson, but I think Cal Jennings is still with LAFC. Is that right? I have to double check, but congrats to Gino. He goes to the Galaxy, and wow, I mean, he's a 1st round pick. I don't know if we were expecting him to be a 1st round pick, Bryson, but he got the job. But it's still a tremendous honor for another UCF player to get drafted into MLS. And by the way, Cal Jennings was with LAFC last year. Got loaned out to Las Vegas Lights, which is their USL team. But hey, congrats to Gino, another key UCF player getting drafted to MLS. Bryson.
Yes, 5th. He is the 5th 1st round pick in program history there, and congratulations to him. But it'll be very interesting to see how the UCF men's soccer team is going to respond without him, because he was just very versatile in the way he was able to score. He managed to make the top 10 all time in program history in points. Austin David and the ESPN Plus play-by-play announcer for the team and I talked about Gino and what the losing him could potentially do for the team going forward, as well as a bunch of other stuff about UCF men's soccer. You can watch our video on the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel, and you can also read my additional thoughts about UCF men's soccer season on blackandgoldbanneret.com. Kyle?
Yep. We've got, all right, so that'll take us to, as we finish up here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast prior to the Christmas holiday, I want to ask these two guys right here, Bryson Turner, Kyle Nash. If you're UCF, what's on your Christmas list for 2023? What do you guys want? What does UCF want here, going for, and not just for next year, but maybe long term? Like if you're putting together the Christmas list, Santa, what would we like as Knight fans? Kyle, I want to start with you.
You mean, this may sound really boring, but any form of cash gift cards you could give this program is a good idea. For all the investment, all the infrastructure, all the extra stuff that they're going to need jumping into the Big 12, bring all the cash. I don't care. Skip the Christmas card if you want. Just hand me the the new man. Like, that is definitely something that this group would need for Christmas and would make great use of. It's one of those things where, what do you want for Christmas? Oh, I need so much. Listen, just give me a gift card. I'll figure it out. That'll totally work for UCF's Christmas this year.
Well, let me ask you this. What would you spend that gift card on?
I would first thing you'd spend it on. First thing.
Where are you going? Target? You going to, are you hopping on Amazon? Are you going to,
I would say Home
B&H Photo? What are you doing?
I would say Home Depot, so they could get supplies to build the new facilities for basketball.
Okay. All right. How about you, Bryson?
All I want for Christmas is a new OC.
Wow.
I am
he learneth well.
I am ready. Listen, the buzz around this new offensive coordinator from what we're kind of getting at is that it could be more of a play caller than it has been in the past. And I think that if Gus is going to kind of, release a little bit of control on that, then this offensive coordinator hire is going to be a lot bigger than I think the two previous offensive coordinators we've had before this with G.J. Kinney and Chip Lindsey. So whatever decision they make is going to be very key. And so the big thing for me that I want for Christmas is I want a new OC that can really take those play calling reins and give a dimension to the offense that still has that Gus flavor, but it is still, what's the word? I guess is able to be a lot more consistent, I guess, like wide receiver, all that type of stuff.
Well,
so
I think what you're talking about to extend the food metaphor, because this is the holidays, Gus is he's the executive chef who works on the line with the line cooks. But I think I think that Gus may be leaning in the direction of, I'm going to be more of an administrator, executive chef here. I'm going to hire me a headline cook.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's actually that's actually a really good way to put it. So that's more immediate. So we'll see how that goes. You can look at our offensive coordinator list on the blackandgoldbanneret.com. Well, there you go. So and a bunch of different candidates, including mentioning Scott Frost. I mean, I don't know, but we'll see.
I should clarify myself. My uncle Ed, who's been an executive chef for years, is going to yell at me if he hears this. Gus has been, the executive chef down on the line, but I think he's at the point where he's like, you know what, I'm going to be head chef, or I'm going to be the executive chef. I need to hire me a head chef.
There's a lot to that too, because he was asked about that during Addison Williams' announcement, Bryson, and he had actually the question was directly asked of him. I think it was either the Orlando Sentinels Jason Beatty or Rivals.com Brandon Helwig, I forget which, but they asked him about the willingness to forego play calling duties, and
mm-hmm.
Gus didn't outright say yes, but he also mentioned how hard the job has come with recruiting and this NIL era and all that. And if you double that with my theory of this is possibly Gus's retirement job, air quotes, where he's local enough to the place where he wants to recruit, has capitalized on local recruits like never before, right? A record high school recruiting class for UCF this year, by the
mm-hmm.
way.
Yeah.
The writing is on the wall that he's accepting of the fact that to get that premier guy, he might have to forego those play calling talents.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. By the way, Addison Williams will coach the defense in the bowl game, like we mentioned. We're expecting the offensive coordinator hire to be named most likely after the bowl game. So since we're going to be eyeball deep into bowl prep, which you heard earlier on our show. Thanks to our friends at the Duke Basketball Report. You can follow them on social media as well. Thanks to Bryson. It's Bryson Turner. Kyle's at the SOTG for the student of the game on Twitter as well. I'm at Jeff_Sharon. You can follow us at UCF Banneret_SBN. Insofar as Elon Musk will let us. We haven't been covering his jet. Although the kid who did Elon jet, he's a UCF student. Did you know that?
Yes, I remember that. I remember there was a UCF student that did an article about him.
Fantastic. But you can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. We will have a post bowl game reaction for you on Night Shift on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And of course, photos for you all the time on our Instagram page, instagram.com/Black and Gold Banneret. And then don't forget to, we've got our upcoming special Christmas present for you, our interview with former UCF head coach Mike Kruzek coming out on our podcast feed. Make sure you subscribe to us for that wherever you get podcasts, Apple or Android. If not, make sure you do it. If you are, also please leave us a rating. We appreciate all the ratings as well. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the holiday. Please be safe if you're traveling. We will see you next week after the bowl game, UCF against Duke in the Military Bowl. Until then, go Knights, charge on. Enjoy the holiday, everyone.